Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcasting to you from Jerusalem. And in today's headlines, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns the nuclear deal with Iran being formulated by the P5+1 was even worse than he had initially feared. Former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, already facing a 6-year prison term after a corruption conviction, was found guilty this morning in a separate case of corruption allegations. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned during the weekly cabinet meeting in Jerusalem the framework Iranian nuclear agreement being formulated by international negotiators representing the P5+1, the United States, Russia, China, France, Britain, and Germany, during which the Israeli leader warned the nuclear deal was even worse than he had initially feared. Netanyahu also warned that advances made by Iranian allied forces in Yemen and other Arab countries indicate the Islamic Republic's resolve in trying to conquer the entire Middle East while moving toward nuclear weapon capabilities.
אני הבאתי בפניהם את הדאגה העמוקה שלנו מההסדר המסתמן עם איראן בשיחות הגרעין. ההסכם הזה, כפי שהוא מסתמן, מאשש את כל החששות שלנו. ואף יותר מכך. במקביל להתכנסות להסכם המסוכן הזה, באי כוחה של איראן בתימן מנהלים מהלך של כיבוש חלקים נרחבים ממדינה זאת וניסיון השתלטות על מצרי באב אל-מנדב האסטרטגיים שמשנים את מאזן השייט והספקת הנפט העולמית.
More in Yemen later. Israel has campaigned against the nuclear negotiations, arguing that they would ease sanctions on the Islamic Republic of Iran while leaving it with the basic infrastructure necessary to build a nuclear weapon.
I think the agreement that might be signed in the next days is a very bad one, not only for Israel, I believe for the entire world. The all allies of the United States in the Middle East asked the Americans not to sign and not to reach an agreement that will maybe encourage them and others to open an arms race in order to achieve a nuclear power. So I think the time has come to wait. The deadline is not something that we should comply to, and I think that they can do it even after and with much better agreement.
The P5+1 and Iran try to break an impasse in the nuclear negotiations, but Western diplomats caution that attempts to reach a preliminary deal by the self-imposed deadline set for tomorrow could yet fall apart. British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond said that a nuclear weapon must be put beyond Iran's reach without any compromise on that matter. The British top diplomat noted, however, that he believes a deal can be reached by the deadline set.
We're here because we believe a deal can be done. It's in everybody's interest that a deal does get done, but it has to be a deal which puts the bomb beyond Iran's reach. There can't be any compromise about that. So if we're going to get this done here over the next few hours, Iran has got to take a deep breath and make some tough decisions to ensure that those red lines can be met. I very much hope that we will have success over the coming hours.
Meanwhile, German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier warned that the stakes in the nuclear negotiations were very high. Nonetheless, the German top diplomat said the atmosphere in the negotiations were very good so far, but that the outcome of the negotiations would depend on the two sides' ability to narrow differences in the coming hours.
Bisher gut, aber das hängt im Weiteren natürlich davon ab, ob die noch bestehenden Unterschiede in den Auffassungen, in den Positionierungen geschlossen werden können, ob man näher zueinander kommt in den nächsten Stunden. Insofern, ich schließe auch nicht aus, und das ist fast der Normalfall in solchen Verhandlungen, in denen es um viel geht und denen wir ja nicht nur Verantwortung für uns selbst, sondern auch für all die anderen, die hier nicht am Tisch sitzen, tragen. Ich schließe auch nicht aus, dass es noch Krisen in diesen Verhandlungen geben wird.
In other news, a new escalation in the region backed by the Islamic Republic of Iran has threatened stability in Yemen as Houthi rebel forces battle to try and oust Yemen's president Abd Rabbu Mansour who fled his country for Saudi Arabia to seek refuge. In a surprise intervention by Saudi Arabia, Sunni Muslim forces attacked the Iranian-allied Houthi in a bid to thwart its advance. The Saudi-led military intervention, which started last week, marked a major escalation of the Yemen crisis, in which Iran publicly supports the Shiite Muslim Houthis and announces the surprise assault by the Saudis and demanded an immediate halt to its operation. Meanwhile, the Sunni Muslim-led Arab League pledged full support for the Saudi-led campaign in Yemen. In a meeting in Egypt by the Arab League, the Egyptian foreign minister said his country is prepared for ground warfare in Yemen if needed.
كان لزاما عليهم أن تلبي نداء الرئيس عبد رب منصور هادي وحكومته، وقد أعلنت مصر عن دعمها سياسيا وعسكريا، وكذلك عن ترتيب المشاركة مع الائتلاف بقوة جوية وبحرية مصرية وقوة برية إذا ما لزم الأمر، على ضوء مسؤولية مصر التاريخية الراسخة تجاه الأمن القومي العربي وأمن الخليج العربي.
The United Nations also condemned the actions by the Iranian-allied Shiite Muslim Houthi fighters who seek to overthrow the Western-allied president.
I share those deep concerns. I have repeatedly condemned the attempts by the Houthis and former President Saleh to undermine political agreements by military force. I take note that military action has been undertaken at the request of Yemen's sovereign and legitimate leader, President Hadi.
Now to domestic affairs in Israel. The former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, already facing a 6-year prison term after corruption conviction, was found guilty this morning in a separate case of accepting illegal payments from a U.S. businessman. The ruling in Jerusalem's district court reversed a 2012 acquittal of the veteran politician who led Israel from 2006 to 2009. The court found that Olmert accepted cash-filled envelopes from an American businessman who hoped to further his interests in Israel. It convicted him of fraud and breach of trust on the basis of new testimony from a former aide who had accepted a plea bargain. Speaking after leaving the court, Olmert's lawyer said his team was disappointed by the court's ruling.
אנחנו מאוכזבים משום שהטיעונים היו טיעונים משפטיים מובהקים, וצר לנו שהגענו עד הנה, צר לנו בשביל ההכרעה וצר לנו בשביל האיש.
Israel's state prosecutor Uri Korb said justice was finally served.
קבע היום בית המשפט פה אחד כי מר אולמרט בהתנהלותו קיבל מעטפות כפי שקבע בית המשפט בפעם הקודמת, וכי התנהגותו מהווה עבירה של הפרת אמונים הפוגעת בציבור, פוגעת בטוהר המידות, פוגעת באמון הציבור, וכי הוא יתנהל באופן מושחת.
Facing corruption allegations, Olmert announced his resignation as prime minister in 2008, cutting short his pursuit of a peace agreement with the Palestinians, and stayed on until a new government was in place after a 2009 election in which Benjamin Netanyahu won the post of prime minister. Last May, Olmert was sentenced in other proceedings to 6 years in jail for accepting some $160,000 in bribes linked to a real estate deal in Jerusalem when he served as the city mayor. Olmert is currently appealing that conviction in Israel's Supreme Court. The former Israeli Prime Minister continues to deny any wrongdoing in both cases, and his lawyers said they were considering appealing today's ruling to the Supreme Court. Thank you for watching us. Keep praying for the peace of Israel and the peace of Jerusalem. I'm Jonathan Hessen. Have an Erev Tov, and we will see you again tomorrow at the same time.